Hello, everybody. Happy afternoon. So it's good to be back. I've missed a few. I know you've been here with Catherine and Allison, Sabrina, and others. But I wanted to just say hello and give you a brief update on where we are with the HEALEY ALS platform trial, and then Dr. Paganotti will take questions. As always, I just want to thank the many groups and foundations that work with us and help support the platform trial. Next slide, please. So we have currently 5 regimens in the platform trial. The 5th one, Trehalose, is actively enrolling. We have 2 others that will start in 2023 and hopefully a third as well. The goal of the platform trial is to really reinvent how we test treatments in people with ALS so that we can be faster and more efficient at finding the best ones and eliminating the ones that don't work. Next slide, please. So every time we add a new drug, we have a science seminar on it, so you can understand what the mechanism of action is, why we think it's should be tested in people with ALS, and our regimen E, which is Trehalose, a drug by a company called Selos. We have recorded a science webinar, actually 2 of them, and so the recordings are available. As we get more information about this drug, we will continue to update people on the mechanism of action of Trehalose. Next slide, please. So we have 60 sites that are enrolling. They're listed here. We are getting close to finished, which we're very excited about. So we probably at this point will not be adding additional sites. The latest 2 sites that joined are Houston Methodist in Houston and Hackensack in New Jersey. Next slide. So as of today, 185 people have provided consent to be part of regimen E. Of those, 132 have been randomized to starting the treatment. Some people are in between what we call screening and starting the drug. Other people, for a variety of reasons, maybe were not eligible or changed their mind. But we are targeting about 160. Sometimes we go a little over, so somewhere between 160 and 170 participants. Again, we couldn't do this trial without the people that volunteered to be part of this, it helps us get an answer quickly. So we're immensely grateful for people who will consider being part of trials. Next slide. The idea of the platform trial is to keep adding new drugs. We've announced regimen F and regimen G. Regimen F is a partnership with Calico, and regimen G, a partnership with Denali. We are also in contract discussions, negotiations with at least 2 other companies. I've lost track a little bit. And we would like ideally to have 3 running at any one time. Next slide, please. So regimen F, as I mentioned, is from Calico. So this is a drug that targets something called EIF2B, which is a regulator of something called integrated stress response. So when neurons are under injury, they have this mechanism to deal with it, but sometimes you can go in overdrive, and that's what we see in people with ALS. And so inhibiting this has been shown in preclinical models to dissolve these aggregates that we see in people with ALS. And so we're very excited about this mechanism. And as we get closer to starting this, we will invite the members of the Calico science team here to present on more details of the science. Next slide, please. So Denali, we just announced that we're partnering with them. They have a very similar drug that works on a similar target. Does it, in a little different way, and we're excited really about working with both of them. Next slide. So Catherine and Allison are here on our call, I think well known to all of you, and really amazing resource to help people find a trial site near you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to them by phone, by email. And so while we love these webinars, the next 2 weeks, many people are on vacation. And so we will not have a webinar until the new year. So I'll just take this moment to wish everybody really wonderful holidays and a happy new year. Next slide, please. With Tech versus ALS and Sean Sarbarker, we made a new video, and we would love people's feedback on it. And it's really about how do we grow the opportunities for people to be in expanded access programs. And so these are for people who are not eligible for clinical trials. And we're very excited. And so here's a link to the video. It's also on our website. And we can put this information in the chat as well. So with that, I'll pass to Sabrina to answer any of your questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for the overview. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. And we have a question about whether we will be adding more sites to the platform trial. And yes, absolutely. We continue to be in contact with our colleagues and multiple sites. And in fact, we have been receiving a few additional requests, and we are right now evaluating a few more sites. So absolutely, as sites and investigators and clinics become interested in joining the trial, absolutely, there's certainly the possibility of adding new sites so that we can continue to be available in more areas. Obviously, every site needs to undergo a process for qualifications and approval. Great. And then there's actually a great question from somebody who said that they joined the webinar late, but they're still looking, asking if we're looking for new participants. Dr. Sukovic, do you want to take that one in terms of whether we're still enrolling new participants in Regimen E at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we have 139 enrolled, and we are looking for somewhere between 160 and 170. So we're definitely enrolling, and we would like to be done with enrollment in January. Again, the sooner we're done with enrollment, the sooner we have the results. But we'll obviously keep going until we're completely full. Thank you for that question.
And question about the route of administration of the new regimens F and G. Are those administered orally?
Yes, yeah, they're both oral. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So there's a good question here. I'm not super sure I know exactly what you mean, so I can start, but if anyone else wants to weigh in. So the question is, there's a new term called synthetic placebo group, and the question is whether this will be an option for the platform trial. So the context I've heard that term used in is when we use like medical records or other ways to create essentially a synthetic or sort of kind of artificial in a way a digital control group. And that's, kind of one definition of the term. Dr. Sukovic, is that the same definition you've heard? Or?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'd say that well, go ahead, Sabrina, if you wanted to answer it.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, we are already planning some of it. I don't know that it exactly fits that definition. So we have some exploratory analyses that are planned for all of the regimens in terms of comparing our data to clinical trial or clinic-based data sets. For example, there is the PROACT database, there is the Natural History Consortium in the US, there's a clinic-based data set in Europe called ENCALS. And so we are already planning, we haven't done those yet, but we're planning some of those analyses comparing to external controls, such as these clinic-based data sets. In a way, those would be, I think, considered synthetic, but perhaps there's additional ways of setting this up that I may not be familiar with. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I think those are good for exploratory analyses right now. They're not validated approaches, and they would not be accepted by any regulatory agency for approval of a drug. And that doesn't mean that wouldn't change, in the future. But I think because the natural history of ALS is actually changing as new drugs come on the market, I don't think that we're at the stage where any regulatory agency would accept anything except for a placebo-controlled trial. So in a way, again, the platform trial at least minimizes that the number of people on placebo and uses all available data to kind of increase power. But going completely with synthetic is probably not yet there for our field.
Yeah, there's a great question about the mechanism of action of the different drugs that have been included so far in the platform trial. So the question is the mechanism of action being different for all the drugs included so far?
Yes. So with the exception now of our the ones that are coming up, but A through E all have different mechanism of action, and F and G are different than A through E, but there is some common features of F and G. And I think that's okay. That's an exciting target. There's different ways to get at that target. And that's actually a good use of a platform trial rather than having two independent trials with a similar target.
And actually, thank you to the people who have been sending nice messages to us through the Q&A. Thank you so much. Sometimes we have actual participants who thank us for the trials instead of participating and having a good experience. So thank you for that. Great. There's a good question about the sites that are being selected for sort of a companion program to the actual platform trial, which is an EAP companion. As some of you may know, the drug that we're testing right now in regimen E, a drug called Trialose, is also being offered right now to people who are not eligible for the trial. Or I should say, we're setting up the EAP in order to be able to offer that drug in early 2023 to people who are not eligible for the trial. That's part of an expanded access program that's being funded by Act for ALS. And just summarizing this for people who may be new. And so the question specifically that came to us today is, when are we going to announce the sites that will participate in this expanded access program of Trialose for people who are not eligible for the platform trial? So we are now in the process of selecting the 25 sites, and we are now in the process of contacting all sites, making sure that their institutions, agree to this, and we can sign the contract. So we will announce the sites in early 2023 as soon as we get closer to activation. We just want to make sure that all these institutions agree to this, and we are good to go from an administrative perspective. I think so. So again, I think that as we send out the contracts, we can announce them soon. We also have an additional few sites that have expressed interest in case the first group of 25 for some reason somebody has to drop out. Let's say if there is staff shortages or things like that. But again, we should be announcing them very soon. And they are all part of the regimen E. So these 25 sites are sort of a subset of the 60 that are available for regimen E right now. And the reason for that, is because they're already familiar with the drug, familiar with the process, and they have expressed interest in participating. So we sent out a request for interest. And so the sites are being selected from the ones that expressed interest. So there's question about kind of obtaining access to Relibrio or AMX35, the new drug that was just approved by the FDA. So the question, because Coach, I don't know if you want to share your experience. So the question is that sometimes some people who are texting here are saying that it may be may take time to get access to this drug, also because staff seems to be backed up. And any comments on that?
Yeah, my comment is this is such a powerful advocacy community. I think one of the things we have to tackle is now that we have drugs, how do we get them for people quicker? This insurance thing is actually a nightmare for everybody, and especially for people living with ALS who can't get access to the drug. I would say that it's hard, but we're able to. It takes a lot of persistence to because a lot of insurance companies are saying no. Then we have to appeal and appeal again. And the ALS community is working together to share letters that work and the words that work. But there's a fundamental problem with how drugs are covered in this country. But please just continue to work with your neurology team and the nurses there. Please know that they're all working really hard to get, and everybody wants to get this for our patients, and it's frustrating for everybody, but it takes persistence.
So there's a good question about the new regimens, F and G, the mechanism of action. I don't know if you want to tell us more about the mechanism of action right now, and also are we gonna kind of share more about the mechanism of action in the near future?
Yeah, I can just say briefly that it's really related to the this process in the cell called integrated stress response, which is chronically activated in the motor neurons of people with ALS. And when that happens, you get TDP-43 aggregation, you get dysfunction in the motor neurons. And when you can inhibit that activation, you can see that biology getting better and getting more towards what the neuron should look like and function normally. We will have both the scientific leaders from Calico and the scientific leaders from Denali come and give a webinar on their drug when we're closer to opening those regimens, and then we'll record that as well. So we'll share, the actual slides with the pictures and the preclinical data for both the drugs.
Yeah, and there's a good request about kind of the names of the drugs. Catherine, may I ask you to post in the chat the link to the press releases, because they contain the actual names and the spelling. I know it's very hard to for us to remember those difficult names.
Yeah, I remember by the company names, not the drug names, but you're right. We should get used to the drug names. They're just not intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah, I promise I'll try to remember them. Yeah, study them a little bit. So while Catherine posts that, I thank you for doing that, Catherine. I don't see any more questions. I do want to say that we always announce milestones on this webinar series. So I can't wait to announce that we have completed enrollment for Regimen E. So hopefully that's gonna happen, when we come back in the new year. But please, if you are interested in enrolling in Regimen E, again, there are still a few spots. So this is the right time to participate in Regimen E testing trials, so that we can hopefully announce that milestone soon when we come back. Dr. Sukovic, any other points before we break?
No, I just want to thank everybody. And we're still, I'll say we're still doing a lot of analyses on the initial drugs, a lot of the biomarker work. And as we get more of those results, we'll be sharing those in the new year as well.
Yeah. And so again, we won't have this webinar for the next 2 weeks, but then certainly we'll be back in the new year. I know Catherine and Alison are gathering feedback from people with ALS about topics. We are actually working with different speakers to be back here. I know we met many of the PIs, but also some of our scientists. I know they come back to also talk more about, again, biomarkers, other topics that have been suggested, as well as regulatory topics. Great. Thank you so much. So with that, I think we can break. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
January. Thank you. Bye-bye.